today we are reviewing the new
Instant Pot Easy.
Right now it's only available at Walmart, and it's an entry-level model, so they don't have some of the advanced features of the other models, but it has the basic functions that we always use: pressure cooking, sauteing, and it also has some slow cooking features. They've included a lid, a glass lid.
So in this review, we're going to tell you what you love, what to watch out for, and we'll help you get started cooking in your new Instant Pot Easy. I'm Jen.
And I'm Barbara.
And this is with Pressure Cooking Today.
So first off, Jen is in love with the redesign of this lid. It doesn't have metal here.
I tend to be a little bit clumsy sometimes, and I can't tell you. Other ones on this top part will have stainless steel on the top, and I'll touch it and I'll be, ouch! So this one, I can touch anywhere I want to on this lid. It'll still be warm, but it's not going to be an ouch situation. So that's what I like about this lid. Should we break down the parts?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got your lid, this, and you've got your inner pot, and you have your housing or base. This housing is it has a heating element along the bottom, and that's kind of what makes the pressure cooking magic happen. Don't add food to this pot.
Right, so some people will add rice or water to here. It doesn't ruin this, but then you can't cook in it. You have to wait until it dries out. You have to get all the rice. The bottom will actually...
like water will come through,
yeah,
or chicken broth or whatever.
It has screws and stuff that you can undo, and so you can salvage it.
But just get in the habit, like put a wooden spoon on top, especially if you're someone like me who tends to go a little bit faster. A little bit absent-mindedly when you're in a hurry. Put something physical on top of it to remind you, hey, I've got the pot out because I've been adding my ingredients to it. Don't just dump it in and go.
Right, and one thing about this inner pot on the Easy is it's a non-stick pot.
And if you're someone who prefers like a stainless steel pot, Instant Pot does sell a standalone stainless steel version that can go just right in. It fits just perfect. So that's kind of nice. I like to have two different cooking pots, so something like this for rice or oats, and then something like a metal one for searing, but this one works great either way.
Yeah, I like to do like a rice pudding or something in a nonstick pot, because if you're doing something saucy, then it's nice not to have it scorch on the bottom like it sometimes can do in stainless steel. So there are advantages to both, but you do have to be very careful because it will scratch and flake, and so you want to use...
no metal utensils, not even if you're absent-minded. So yeah, the silicone ones, the plastic ones, any of those will be great in here. On the pot, it's got a little like pressure cooker line, 2/3 full and 1/2 full. The 2/3 full is kind of generally your baseline for where you should fill it, unless you're cooking something that foams like oats or pastas, and then you want to fill it just to the 1/2 full line.
Yeah, so you can use less, you just can't put more than 2/3.
Yep, so if you're cooking for a crowd, you want to double, or sometimes you can even triple a recipe and it'll fit in there under the 2/3 line just fine. And that just leaves enough space for, as the contents come to a boil, it leaves enough space for the steam to build and create the pressure that makes cooking happen quicker.
Yes, so we have a lot of questions sometimes about the condensation cup. Sometimes in this rim, liquid will accumulate. There's a hole and it drains down into this condensation cup, and it just slides right into place.
And that's something I clean every time I use my pressure cooker. On the housing, you want to use a damp rag with a little bit of soap on it if you've got something stuck on there, but you don't want to submerge it in water. You don't want to dunk it. Just kind of spot clean it. If you drip like sauce down the front or whatever, use your wet rag to clean it up, and then rinse it with your rag, not under your faucet.
Right. So you can put the inner housing or the inner pot in the dishwasher, which I do. Jen prefers to wash it by hand.
I kind of baby my pots, so.
But that's just up to you. The lid can also be top rack dishwasher.
I choose not to put my lids in the dishwasher because there's sometimes a little bit of water can just kind of seep in. So I will wash it, and I'll use the sink faucet. I'm pulling it down, my invisible sink here. I'll use the sink to rinse it, but then I immediately shake it off, a good shake, and then I immediately dry it. That's how I like to do it.
Yeah, and I usually stick it down in my soapy water, scrub
Do you
it up.
really?
And we take off all the parts and take it apart and then put it back together.
As always, the right way to pressure cook is the way that works for you. So on the lid, you've got different parts on the underside of the lid that correspond with on the top side of the lid. This is your pressure release switch valve.
Yeah.
It's kind of a 2-in-1 combo. Other models will have a little switch off to the side. This one just twists up and down for sealing and venting.
And it just sits on there loosely. Some people think it should fit tight, but no, it will be loose.
It jiggles. And when you are washing your lid, you want to pull this straight up, like just straight up. If you pull it turned, there's a little tiny silicone like triangle dart thing that can get loose. Gasket? Triangle dart gasket thingy. That can get loose, and you don't want that because without this piece working correctly, your pressure cooker will not build up to pressure.
Yeah, so just be careful to pull it straight up.
Yep, so I pull that straight up, and then when we're ready to wash, we've got our little float valve, and this float valve is what will seal up this inner pot so it's super tight. And then when you switch it over to valve and the steam comes out, this is a safety feature where when it's up, you're not able to open the lid. But then when it goes down and all the steam's released, it goes kind of underneath.
Back into the hole, and you can open up the lid.
That's right. So when it's time to clean it, I'll take a finger, put it on the outside over that. And then I'll use my other hand to carefully like peel off the little tiny mini gasket. And then this right here, without that gasket in place, will just fall out. So I always will cut my hand and have it fall into my hand. The pressure cooker also will not work without these parts. So you want to get in the habit of whatever works for you. For me, they stay in my hand until they're back in the lid. And that's what works for me, so I don't get them lost in the sink water. But when you're ready to put it in, you want to put it in with the hole and the little, like, I don't know, notch.
The notch where the valve fits onto.
That goes in first. And you just take it, push it in with your finger, and use your finger to hold it in place while you attach the mini gasket. It's easier to do it if I'm facing me and on a counter, Mom. There we go. Okay, and now it's in place. You can kind of give it a shake. It's not coming out, so we're good there. And this one, it's got a little notch there. So you want that notch to go in on the sealing side, straight down.
Yeah, so you can see written on there, it says sealing and venting, so you know whether when you want venting to release the pressure, you turn it to that, or sealing, then you turn it to seal it up.
Yeah. So the lid on the exterior also has, it's kind of faint, it's just kind of notched into the plastic. It's got a little triangle, and then open and close. And then on the front, it's got a little arrow over here. I think it's right there. Yep. Anyway, it's got a little arrow on the front. So you match these two arrows up together, and you hear it ding-a-ling. That's letting you know the lid is not sealed.
It's not locked into place.
Yep. So you just give it a twist to the locked position. There's a little pin on the outside of the lid that you could see pop out when it's halfway through and back in, and that's locked in place. You could test it this way. They don't recommend carrying it by the handle, and definitely don't carry it while it's at pressure. They want you to carry it with the fins, but I do like to check sometimes to make sure that it's in place. Do you want to talk about the sealing ring, Mom?
Yeah, so the other thing that we didn't talk about was this little
that's the
anti-block shield.
This helps, basically, if your food is foaming, it keeps the foamy food from getting in this little like circle bolt thingy. I don't know.
Yeah, and it just slips on and pulls right off, and we usually take that off every time to wash it. If it's tight at first, you can get a little thin knife and then it'll pop right off. Or there's little
like a door chair
that
cover
fit on the bottom of your chair.
It's like at your local hardware store for like a buck.
You can do that. So the other thing on the lid that is super important is the silicone gasket. So you just pull on it like that to get it to come out.
I call these a sealing ring. You'll see different words for them.
Yeah, and if this is not in place, you'll see steam coming out around the edges of your pot.
Yep.
So it's very important.
It's kind of like a witch's cauldron. It's steaming everywhere.
That you put this back into place. So I like to put it down on the counter and then just start and just walk it around so that you make sure it's fitted underneath that ring. So just go all the way in the circle, and then when you see that it's under there and there's no bulges or anything, you know you've got it in place.
Yep. Common with new to instant pot cooking, if steam is leaking from just one section, 9 times out of 10 it's because your sealing ring is in place everywhere, but that one section steam is is releasing from. So then you would use your valve, switch it to venting to let the pressure out, wait for the float valve to drop all the way, and then you can open the lid. And your lid is going to be super hot, so you want to use like a silicone mitt or something that will help you push it back in place, and just wait long enough that you can lock the lid again, and then you can salvage the mill. 9 times out of 10, that's what happens.
Yeah. So we have this little trivet here. This model does not come with a trivet, and we assume it's because you don't want to use a metal trivet with this.
Yep.
So there's this silicone. This one is sort of a
sling trivet combo.
Yeah, which is nice.
We'll put links for these down to our Amazon store down in the description, so you can check those out there. There's several different models available. But it's got kind of a thicker silicone base that has little like waves. That's what helps keep it off the bottom of the pot. And then if you're doing something like cooking pot in pot, you can take your cake pan and put it on top. We've got videos about cooking pot in pot.
Right.
Ignore this if it's overwhelming to you right now. But we just wanted to make sure that you knew that there were options out there to use the trivet with the Instant Pot Easy.
Right.
So should we do the water test?
Yeah, let's just
lid.
talk about this lid. This doesn't come with very many models, so it's kind of fun that it comes with this model. It's got a little hole to help release a little bit of the steam, but it's nice when you're using slow cook. It has slow cook on low and slow cook on high.
Yep.
And so you can see what's cooking in the pot.
Yep. And the older versions of the Instant Pot Duo, the initial ones were kind of criticized for their lack of slow cook features. But this one comes with a slow cooker lid, and it's supposed to be great for that.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and do the water test. The water test is just basically boiling water, bringing it to pressure to see if your pressure cooker is functioning properly.
And that you've got like the sealing ring and everything in place.
So we put a cup of water, lock the lid in place, and then be sure and switch your pressure release valve to the sealed position.
So sealing is back here in the back, venting is in the front. If you don't get in the habit of that, as it comes to pressure, if it's on the venting setting, you're gonna see steam starting to come out of here. And it will never get to pressure because the steam is allowed to escape. So you have to remember every time to turn it to sealing. The manual said to use 3 quarts of water, which you can use if you want to go straight by the book. I am a rule follower, I get it. But 3 quarts of water will take a long time to come to pressure. Just like if you were boiling 3 quarts of water on the stovetop, it would take a lot longer to come to a boil.
Then if you're just doing 1 cup, which is what we like to do.
So we just did a cup of water because it's enough that it'll get you the idea. And 1 cup is generally the recommended amount of liquid in the recipe that's released from either the ingredients, liquid ingredients, or will be released from like chicken, which releases a lot of liquid as it cooks.
Right, because it is the liquid in there that creates the pressure and the steam, so you always have to cook with some sort of liquid.
So we'll go ahead, we'll hit pressure cook, we'll just set it to a minute, just something quick, and then we'll come back.
I'll show you how to release the pressure.
All right, so while we're waiting for that to come to pressure, we're going to talk about a little bit more about the dial features on there. They've got 1 dial for cook and cancel, so start, stop button, and then they just have like the basic, like the switch for saute,
pressure cook, slow cook, and slow cook high.
Yep, that's right. The knob makes a really satisfying click when you turn it. I have no idea why, but my kids were all like enjoying like going click, 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 click until it was like, be quiet.
So all the other models, they have stew and meat and egg and cake, and people are like, well, what button did I use? So this is why they're calling it the easy, because you don't have to say it's only got the pressure cook button. You know you're going to use the pressure cook button.
So you just flip the switch to pressure cook, and then around the start stop button, that's how you do the time. You can twist it up or down to adjust the time, which I love that because, again, so many people get intimidated by the buttons that they leave it in the box. We cannot tell you how many people get stressed out by the buttons. So I love this. And if you are nervous about pressure cooking, this is at an affordable price point, and it's simple. And the way we write our recipes, any recipe on our site you'll be able to make in here. This cooks at high pressure only. So keep that in mind. We don't have, I think we have maybe a rice pudding recipe on our site for low, but pretty much anything you want on our site, you can cook at high pressure in here. Just pressure cook, and And then that's what does the quick cooking, and then the saute.
Yeah, the saute button we use to brown meats, to saute vegetables, to thicken sauces. So you say you were going to do a beef stroganoff, you would brown your beef and then you would pressure cook it until it was tender, and at the end you're going to thicken the sauce up to make the gravy. So you can all do that in one pot, which makes it super easy.
Yeah, very nice.
So the other feature on this model is it has a keep warm setting, which is very convenient. So if you put a pot of stew on to come to pressure, but then you have to run off and pick up the kids from soccer, then it's just going to switch to the keep warm setting, which is a nice feature because then when you come home, you have your stew and it's all ready to eat.
It's not something that you would want to do like you pressure cook it in the morning and then you go off to work all day. It's something that you would want to do for like short, like you've got company running late, or you've got, you know you're going to want to eat in an hour, like that's fine, but just keep food handling safety in mind as you're using it.
Yeah, so it does have that feature, which is really nice.
So a friend of mine was a little bit timid about cooking, and every time it would get to this point, she would stop it because she was worried about doing something wrong. Totally normal. So you can see the float valve just popped up, and it still reads on front, because just like you do with pasta on a stovetop, you don't start the cook time until after the water's boiling. And so our recipes, the cook time will say 5 minutes. That will mean you set the cook time for 5 minutes, you press start, but your food will not actually be ready in 5 minutes because you need to have time for the liquids inside to come to a boil. And then when it's ready, you'll hear that beep, and the display will change and it'll start counting down. And then when it's done pressure cooking, it's run through that timer that you told it. It will beep again, and then the keep warm light will come on, and it will. That's how it'll start counting up. So when you come back to it after 20 minutes and it says like 15 minutes on it or 5 minutes, it doesn't mean that there's 5 minutes left to pressure cook. It means that it's been 5 minutes since it finished the cook cycle, if that makes sense.
Right. So if it's counting up, adding 1 minute, it's 5:01, 5:02. Then you know that that's the keep warm.
Yep.
Instead of counting down like it would in pressure cooking.
Yeah. So, and while it's sealed, you see like steam's not coming out. You can hear a little bit of it. If you bump it, it'll release a little pressure. It's fine. It's okay. It's supposed to be jiggly. It's supposed to work that way.
Right. So one of the reasons you do the water test is to get yourself comfortable with how your machine works.
Mom was always brave. She's always fearless. She kind of leads me like nervously into the fold. When I first started, I would take like a wooden spoon and I would like lean away to switch it. If that works for you, do it, because honestly, like whatever makes you feel comfortable pressure cooking, no one's going to be bothered by it. If you do that, let me know, because I'll feel so much more validated from 10 years ago?
Yeah, because you're going to get great meals out of this. So it's just a matter of getting that out there and putting on your brave and giving it a try.
Yeah. And if you are a little bit nervous, one of the best things you could do is use a recipe that calls for a natural release. The natural release, once the cook time ends and the keep warm setting comes on and it starts counting up, a natural release is basically you walk away until the float valve does whatever it wants to do. So the float valve will stay up, and if you're cooking like a stew or a big old roast in there, it'll take a little bit longer for the float valve to drop naturally than it would if you were just boiling water for your water test. There's nothing nerve-wracking about that at all. The quick release is the one where you see when people use their pressure cookers, where a jet of steam will come out, and it will. It's a lot more dramatic than a.
It can be a little intimidating the first time that you switch it from sealing to venting, and the steam comes right out.
Or you can be like Barbara and be not bothered at all and be like, I got this.
Stop.
But you want to make sure. So this valve goes straight up. So you want to make sure that you're not under any cabinets or pendant lights or anything that's important to you. You don't want to have the steam going straight up and in it. It should be fine, but just as a precaution.
Yeah, after you repeatedly do it, you don't need that steam on your cabinets.
Yep.
So the time is up.
And we're going to flip this knob from venting to sealing. When you do that, you don't want to reach over like this, because the steam is going to come up out of this valve itself. So come around from the back. Oh, it's angled. Okay, so we have some little drips of water that came out during that quick release. That's totally normal. If you see foam or like food, like little bits of oats or coming out, immediately switch it back to sealing. Get your wooden spoon out if you need to, but switch it back to sealing, and that will stop. The last thing you want to do is have like foam coming out and like just let it keep going, because that's when like the lid can get damaged. That's when your food can get damaged. Just seal it back up, wait for 30, 60 seconds and open it up again, and repeat that process as often as you need to until that float valve drops into the lid.
Yeah, and that's what we call an intermittent release. We have a whole video on natural intermittent pressure release, so watch that if you have any questions on that.
Yeah. So we've released the pressure, the float valve has dropped, and now we're going to twist the lid. There's going to be a cloud of steam that kind of comes out with it. So just like you wouldn't put your face over a pot of boiling pasta water, don't have your face right over as you take the lid off, and don't put your arm right over it as you do it. So just twist it, open it, there's that steam. And I like to shake off the lid as the water boils. It'll condense on the lid a little bit. So I like to give it a good shake just to make sure that it isn't going to drip on my arm when I take the lid off. This lid you can want to put, it's going to be hot, so I generally will just put it like face down inside my sink, just to kind of keep it out of the way where I'm not going to accidentally touch it. Again, with like the all plastic lid, that's not as much of a problem than the ones that have stainless steel. And at this point, you can finish your dish, whether it's by sauteing to thicken or whatever else.
Yeah, so let's just talk a little bit about the new dial on this.
So this one cooks at high pressure only, so the only adjustments you can make are to adjust the time. So when you go to saute, you just click it over to saute, and then you have to press the start button. If you don't press that start button, it's not going to work properly. So you press the start, and it'll say on. And when you're doing the saute, you want to wait until it says hot before you continue, just to get the maximum,
Right.
just for it to sear correctly.
Don't want to add your ingredients until it says hot. It actually says hot on the display.
And then if you sauteed and sauteed your onions together and you're ready to add the meat and start pressure cooking, when you twist it, it doesn't change because you have to hit that cancel button. And it'll say off, and then once you hit your cancel button, you can say pressure cook, start, and its default is 10 minutes, but you can adjust it down or up with this little silver slider around the outside. And then when you got it at the right spot, you just hit the start button again, and it will say on. A lot of the Instant Pot models that have a dial, you have to actually use that dial as a selector tool, and it could be confusing to people. So again, the Instant Pot Easy really simplified it. The dial just twists to select the time and then start. And just kind of get in the habit of double checking, did I press start? If you don't press start, it'll beep at you for a minute, but if you've already walked away, it's gonna just default to being off again. And you'll come back 20 minutes later and be like, hey, dinner's supposed to be ready. What's going on? You have to get in the habit of pressing start. Not all Instant Pot models have a start button, but this one does, so just as a reminder.
Yeah, pretty much the newer models, they're including that start button, which is nice. So this model sells for about $69 right now, a Walmart only. I expect probably have some sales on that as the holidays come, and so it's
we'll
a
keep
great
you posted.
Basic model if you're just getting started.
Yep. Or if you cook in like an RV, this would be a model I would absolutely consider having there. So if you have any questions, please let us know. Leave us a comment, and we will get back to you. If you have one and you love it, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.